Hello, hello. Welcome to the Thoughtful Edge podcast. And today we have Sergii Demianchuk as our guest, and we are going to talk about Ruby on Rails. Sergei dedicated almost all his professional career to the software architecture and learning how to make software better, how to make it more efficient, and how to build systems. Now he works at Narvar, and like as I mentioned today, our today's topic is Ruby on Rails. So, Sergey, could you please share with us your journey as the software architect and how you came to specialize in Ruby?
Yeah, hi Dmitro. It is my pleasure to be on your podcast. And yeah, as you said, like I was like whole my entire professional life, I was either like working with Ruby, attached to Ruby, but it was always like on my path. And I really love Ruby, Ruby on Rails, all the technology around this. And it was like always a dedication to Ruby. While I was not starting immediately from the Ruby, I had been with other languages for a long time before I started with Ruby. But my passion to Ruby is still like till these days is really big. And yeah, I started actually to programming from 1999 actually, and I started with like basic Pascal, like C, C++, Builder, Delphi, like all these languages, and I continue my passion going to different like informatic Olympiads, for example, and take participation, compete with different really great mature guys, and then I continue in my like higher education in my institute, and it was like computer science. And again, like I was there not knowing about Ruby even exist of that, but I was already like programming on C# and Java. And when I was around like my end of my higher years in university and about to be graded, I was introduced to Ruby and Ruby on Rails technology, and just give it a try. And believe me, it was really great. I already like have some concept in my mind like, about like C# and Java, C, and I was able to move all my ideas, already like develop solution to Ruby with such an ease and breeze in my mind, and it was like really like a breeze of fresh air for me at that time, and I continue growing in that. Then I started to work on some project dedicated to Ruby on Rails. It was like automation. It was another project on IoT, which we also use Ruby. Then it's like web development, a SaaS solution, PaaS solution, and everywhere we were using like Ruby on Rails. Historically, I was all the time dedicated to application security department, and I was always like in AppSec domain and a little bit in the healthcare. And right now I'm in retail, but Ruby fits well in all these areas, and this is great because like you mature, your experience mature, and language is also mature with you, and it always has something to offer to you on each and every of these stages. And again, it's not about only like building something, but moving fast with some ideas and be able to prototype really well. And this is like where Ruby on Rails is shine. It really like shines really well there. And it's also about teaching others, mentoring others. And I would say that I have never been tired of Ruby, and it still like give me something each and every day, even till now, to learn, and still inspires me. And this is like really great. It's worth mentioning that I have been like also doing a lot of in my professional career, a lot of like mentoring and also providing like technical interview and etc. But the vital part of being like there with Ruby and providing this coaching and interviewing is also to be on both sides. So before I been like evaluating other people's, I have been evaluated, and this is also great. And I always like changing like the sides. First I was being like evaluatee, and then I was evaluator, and it's all about like talking to the people, talking to the passionate people about the same technology that you love. And this is like really great because this synergy of sharing experience and getting something for myself, it's always great. And again, like it's a really huge community of inspired people, and Ruby on Rails is all about like communicating and always finding something new. So either it's
Wow,
like SaaS, PaaS, or cloud technology embedded, it doesn't matter. Ruby fits everywhere really well.
awesome. That sounds so inspiring. And I feel
Yep.
that you love the language so much. And considering that you had an opportunity to compare that with the other different platforms like Java, like I worked with Java throughout the whole my career. Like I love that language, but I also would agree with you. Like the programming language is just a tool, and we just here to select the best tool out there, and we don't need to confine us to someone like experience and just to someone tool. But if you like Ruby, this is great. And as Ruby's creator, Ikira Matsumoto aim to make programmers happy. Apparently, they made happy yourself. So, like you already mentioned, that it is convenient. And how does it make you happy, or does it?
Um, yeah, this like I believe this is like a really broad topic, even maybe dedicated to another like discussion. But just to mention, like I feel like it's really inspiring, and it's why it's making like people happy because you can start with some small, really small things, and then if you'd like to go in some advanced technique, it allows you to do this. And it's always about thinking about ROI, right? Return of investments. How much you would like to put in learning some language and how much you are going to get, or how quick you can start doing, producing something meaningful. And this is again like when Ruby and particularly Ruby on Rails framework is really shines because from starting like idea to start like prototyping and to bring some idea to really working solutions, it just can be like hours of doing something, already making some mocks and etc., and already see the visual results of your work. And again, Ruby on Rails and Ruby, it's not only about like one framework, but it's like synergy and consistency along different technologies around this. So for example, you have like a problem with background workers, right? You can use like Redis or Sidekick. You would like to go to the cloud. Okay, that's not a problem. Google GCP allows like cloud tasks, which is substitution to background workers. So all these tools already there, and there are a lot of like mature open source tools that are either supported by one developer or group of maintainers, and they're just there, and you just can go experiment, use them, and again, as I said, like you will like it. Experience is really great.
Awesome. Yeah. Uh, that's tells a lot about how we can leverage that, just not to produce something, but make us feel better while using this tool and while using that approach and while using everything what Ruby has to offer. By the way, did you have a chance to try ChatGPT
Uh,
uh, with Ruby? Like how
Definitely.
how does
And
it
it's
manage?
yeah, as you said, like it's really amazing because right now everyone is it's like on the hype. Everyone is um, thinking thoroughly about how like OpenAI, like ChatGPT, is going to influence our work, and and again, like for Ruby, there's already like solutions, and it's called like Ruby OpenAI. This is already like a gem. A gem is like a library, as for example in Python, right? It's a gem library in Ruby that can help you to solve some particular either small or big problem, or can be used like as an injection of plugin. It can be just bringing some missing functionality or some validation, because there are so many. The great thing about Ruby is that there are so many ways you can solve the problem. There's not only one solution, but there are multiple. And a great thing on top of that is that you can always refactor and reintroduce some idea or refactor, make it better, make it concise, faster, more problem solving. And it's all there already incorporated in the Ruby idea. And again, like we're going to probably talk about conventions over configurations idea, and this is like one of the part of the key thing in Ruby. But yeah, I was able to try it. Experience is not so bad. It's again, tools are evolving, everything is evolving, and Ruby is evolving. This is really great. There are already few other like gems that are written around this OpenAI, and for example, image generation DALL-E. I was able to play around with Ruby OpenAI, and this is really great.
Wow, that's impressive. Yeah, cool. And yeah, the technology is evolving so fast, and we cannot even like keep up with all of the news that just keep coming, and all of those news about new startups and new applications of the AI is just insane. And coming back
And
to
one more addition, if I can, like for example, it's not
sure.
only about the Chat GPT, right? Because it's always like something great tool is emerges, right? And other like companies try to compete, right? And for example, Chat GPT, and we have another like Google Bard, which is also not so bad, and it's like let's say try to build the competitor for Chat GPT. And there is also Microsoft Bing, right, which is also getting like really good results there competing with Chat GPT. And all these tools sometimes they are creating really great like ideas, software tools, etc. But sometimes they can also create like really confused information or false information. But they are doing this in such a convenient and comprehensive way that sometimes you just have to put some human and to validate those results of these tools and what they are really producing. And another thing that I also love with this like new tools is that it's not bad. It's not bad that something is like evolving, because all these tools then already try to evolve already existed tools. So all other tools just setting new higher standards and they just try to compete. But in these competitions, great ideas and great solutions are to be raised, and this is great.
Right, right. Right now, like everyone is trying to incorporate some of the achievements that ChatGPT is proposing. Like I've recently seen a presentation by the company which is making Copilot product, and this is the tool which is so awesome and so amazing. It simplifies the life of the developer significantly. Like it can just write whatever code just in line in your code editor in your IDE. It can write unit tests for you. It can like generate some boilerplate code or like whatever else. Some of the or take on some of the boring tasks. Just so impressive and inspiring as well at the same time.
Exactly.
So you mentioned one of the Ruby's philosophy point, which is convention over configuration. Could you please talk about that as well?
Yeah, this is really powerful concept because there are already like let's say Ruby way or let's say Rails way of doing some things. You can do it on your own, but there are some really like best practices or rule of thumbs that already developed by the community, and if you're going to follow those, then you will be gratitude in the end, and you will be rewarded with a clean code, really great code that can be refactored, easy to read code, etc. This is all about convention or configurations. So if you follow the conventions, then in the end you will get some really structured, not fragile but flexible code. This is all about. And there are also, as well as like the solutions, but solutions is always sometimes like coming with their patterns and anti-patterns. So there are a lot of like anti-patterns coming from different other languages that can be really mixed into Ruby, and Ruby already developed some solutions how to mitigate these anti-patterns. For example, there is like anti-pattern like got object class, right? Or fat model, fat controller. And how you're going to deal with fat controller? Of course, you're going to make this controller like skinny, right? And move the logic to the model. But then you apply one pattern and make the controller skinny, but then create another anti-pattern, fat model. How you're going to refactor fat model? Of course, you're going to make the model skinny, and you're going to extract this business logic to services. But services can bloat it really fast with the code. And how you're going to deal with that? You're going to create the Puro, which is like acronym for pure Ruby objects. Why? Because it's easier to test them, and it's easier to replace them, and it's easier to make a dependency injection, right? And when we're talking about dependency injection and dependency inversion, by the way, we are talking about some principles, and we're calling these principles solid principles, which are created by Robert C. Martin, another great guy who just extracted those principles and put them. And we have like solid principles. It's like single expressibility, open close principle, least cost substitution principle, interface segregation principle, and dependency inversion principle. And if you follow the best practices or those principles, in the end, you will not by default, of course, nothing comes like for free. You have to work, you have to to build your solution, and nothing comes for free. But if you're going to spend that much time to understand the principles, understand the anti-patterns, apply best solutions, then in the end you will be rewarded with the great code that everyone would love to work with. And again, like if you can easily refactor and everything is covered with the tests, then you can move fast, which is really important in our market. Moving fast is really important, and it's all coming to the benefits and ROI in the end, like return of investments.
Right, right. And the maintenance of that code
Exactly, the cost of
is like
maintenance.
is less costly, is less will require less effort to do that, or to
Exactly,
fix
everyone
bugs
is
or
moving
find
so
bugs
fast.
or whatever.
Everything is moving so fast. Will the new developers come and will love to work with that code? Are your dependencies up to date? Are they covered with the test? There are so many tools developed over the time for the Ruby on Rails for different style guides and practices. For example, Rubocop, Sandymatter, uh, Ruby Critic. You name it, right? A lot of different tools and libraries that helps to emphasize the great practices of the code. And this is also great because it's all community supported. And if you know these things, if you support this, you can contribute back. You get something from community. You give back something to community. Everyone benefits. This is like a synergy of like great people, great talented, using the great tools like Ruby and Ruby on Rails.
I definitely love this approach, and I definitely love Ruby already.
Yep,
Like if it allows you to do all that exciting stuff,
it
because
makes me smile.
myself as a developer, like I totally understand everything what you're talking about, and all those pains of like unstructured code, like God objects or like some other anti-patterns. It is so painful to deal with, and it is very good to have all those kind of guardrails around the code from the very beginning, around your application, that will allow you to just don't make the mistakes that so widespread. And if there are some framework that will just mitigate them and will allow you to write a better code from the very beginning, it's just amazing. And speaking of that, can you discuss some of the other key strengths and weaknesses of the Ruby in comparison to other platforms and languages, for example, Java or Python?
Again, this is like another broad topic, but I will be able to at least emphasize like few. Of course, like if at least one language will be ideal, then there will be no other languages. But in reality, nothing is ideal. Each and every tool is good for some particular like problem-solving solution, right? Uh, in talking about like Ruby on Rails, etc., it's really almost ideal everywhere. But there are some like key cons that I can mention, and the biggest, probably the main problem, it was like from the very beginning, is the problem of parallelism. We're always talking, when we're talking about like classical Ruby implementation, like C implementation, because Ruby is implemented on the C and it's called like MATS implementation, classical Ruby implementation. It's lack of like parallelism, right? And we're always talking about concurrency versus parallelism. And in Ruby, there is no parallelism, but there is like concurrency. And it was even from the version Ruby 1.8 when we have like green threads which were spanning themselves and then halt themselves to be able to delegate some work to other threads which were like sleeping before. And then there was a huge improvement in Ruby 1.9, where the new version of the Ruby virtual machine was introduced, and instead of green threads there was like this threads which spanned by virtual machines. It was a great improvement. And then there was like Ruby 2 version and even more improvements in the speed equality, and Ruby 2.5, where we introduced like pattern matching and all this kind of great things. And right now it's even better, because right now with WebAssembly there's like Ruby which can be run in the web browser in the newest version of Ruby, and JIT, like just-in-time compilation for the Ruby, it's also there. I mean, the language is evolving. There are some demands of the current like problem and etc. And Ruby language is not fragile, it's flexible, it's evolving, and it's just evolving to solve even more problems, not to sacrifice the previously already working features of the Ruby language. But parallelism is one of the problems of the Ruby. Because if we're talking about parallelism, it's not possible because there is a special um, global interpreter lock put it in the Ruby, specifically in the Ruby virtual machine, so that only one thread at a time can actually handle the context of execution. Everyone else is actually halting. But that is done for the reason. There is actually a good explanation about that. There are actually a book written about that. It's done with the thinking of the C extension. And there are a lot of like different libraries, like for example Nokogiri or FF5, which are using like C extension. And if we are going to allow like parallelism and there will be like a multi-thread environment in C extension, that will be absolutely hard to track this problem in C++ or C extension. And if it will fail there, then it will fail the whole process of the Ruby because Ruby is based on the C. So with the thinking of this extension, there is like a global interpreter lock, which doesn't allow us to use the full parallelism. But there is like a thing of concurrency. And if you think about this problem, you sometimes don't even need this parallelism because there are already other techniques available to omit this problem with parallelism. And for example, just use multiple processes of the Ruby, like Puma, for example. Puma application web server, what it's doing is just like span different workers in different processes, which is allowed. It's just like more memory on the footprint for each and every process, but it omits the problem of parallelism and you just get it. Or there is another implementation of the Ruby like gRuby, which is already running on Java Virtual Machine instructions, and it can actually use the parallelism. Again, in modern society, like we don't even need this parallelism, and this problem is not that big while it exists because there are some tools which like just simplify you dealing with parallelism. Uh, Also, another thing is, and I believe it's not even a cons, but actually a pros. Comparing to Python and Java, Ruby is really highly dynamic language. It means like everything in Ruby is like just object. Like booleans are objects, right? Numbers are objects. Like objects are objects. Classes are objects. Like because in under the hood, like in
So
the
there are
C,
no primitive types, right?
yeah, because the only primitive type is the structure of type value, which is like a C. So each and every like primitive is described by the structure, by C structure with a type value. And again, it's great because it's moving us to, it's great because it allows us to develop the C extension with ease. And again, it's another topic for discussion, but if you once would like to develop a C extension for Ruby, it's really a great opportunity to just see, learn, and it's really experience is really great if you'd like to do it.
Yeah, interesting. Now, like looking at Java, like I see that there are like a lot of similarities as well, and maybe in some languages some of the items are handled better. In some languages, it's a bit worse, but still, like as you mentioned, as we can use parallelism, as we can use multi-core like approaches to run different threads on different cores on the modern CPUs. Yeah, that might not be that a big deal actually.
Exactly.
And could you please also talk about a challenging project where you used Ruby and what were the difficulties that Ruby helped you to overcome?
Okay. That's a great question because surprisingly and historically, all my projects were challenging. So there was no easy project, but that's a great part of that because with Ruby, I can solve like different ways the same problem, and I can go like back in time and refactor something and apply some different ideas and thoughts. And Ruby just allows me to do that. And for example, one of the project we have to use like a lot of like services, and there was like a really context sharing between those services, and it was really like definition or like business goal from the clients to make this really fast, straightforward, and easy to maintain and changeable because it was using like a lot of REST and it was like using like API different versions, and they should be communicating using other microservices in Python and Node.js. And we decided to go with another great pattern, which is called interactor for the services. And you just abstract all this like command execution in particular interactors. And for example, if you need to send some letter, you have another interactor to send it. If you need to decorate, you have another like interactor to decorate something. If you need to process some gRPC, for example, protocol, that's there. You just create another interactor. And then interactors are chained into organizers. So you create one organizer that shares the contact and organize those interactors in one chain. And this chain, of course, like called like chain of responsibility as like another design pattern. And then you just orchestrating the group of these organizers and like call them separately in parallel, and the execution is take like really fast time, because the execution of those group of organizers and interactors are just parallelized and separated and not affecting each other. So some sort of like automatic and like really atomic operations ideas is like solved with these organizers and interactors. And it even goes so much great because it evolves in separate service, separate API that was like extracted as a separate product later on, and we have to support and extend it to really like others approaches and other like business goals. And we just benefit from writing the clean code from the very beginning. And while architecting this like interactor approach, it was really easy to go with different version on one version, and which is like multi-version approach. And again, we benefit this because we were able to come back with non-breaking changes for different clients.
Yeah, that's very flexible, this schema that you described, and the way that you decided to use those interactors, and how you describe the orchestration of that. Like, sounds like very flexible approach, which gives you a lot of capabilities, and you can combine them in different ways and achieve whatever
Exactly.
results you need. Yeah, very, very good. And moving forward and talking about the future of Ruby language, especially with the rise of other languages and platforms like Rust and Go that might be perceived as competitors. So, how the future of Ruby will look like?
Okay. I would say that the future of Ruby is great, and is greater than ever. I know that there are like each and every year, like in 2018, for example, there was like topics or videos like, is the Ruby dead in 2018? And then, is the Ruby dead in 2020? And is Ruby dead in 2023? It's not that. It's absolutely not that. It's evolving together with all the communities, all the other languages. The great part of that is that a lot of those languages are actually were inspired by Ruby. And for example, if you're talking about like CoffeeScript was really adopted like really early days in Ruby, and it was like used as a substitution of better JavaScript. And then the ECMAScript, JavaScript ECMAScript 2015 came, and a lot of features in new ECMAScript and that was taken from CoffeeScript, right? And it was like inspired by CoffeeScript, inspired by the Ruby approach. And right now, all this like Go routines, right? For example, some of ideas were taken from the Ruby, but right now Ruby is taking ideas from other languages and adopt them and create even better and brighter like features in the Ruby. And if we're talking about comparison, it's a really great thing to compare Ruby to Elixir, because at the time when there was like Ruby, and José Valim, the creator of Elixir, just came up with idea, let's create a better Ruby. He was trying to create another Ruby version, but then he created Elixir. And a lot of really great core concept of Elixir were actually inspired by Ruby. He was taking, because he was like a core contributor to Ruby, and then he created Elixir. And he said like the Ruby version 3 is not a Ruby, but rather take a look at Elixir. This is like your next Ruby. And time flies, and some of the ideas from Elixir were migrated back to Ruby. And newer version of like Ruby has some ideas from other languages. So it's competition, but it's competition where everyone wins. Uh, the same like Rust and Go inspired by Ruby, and some features are inspired by the Ruby. So everyone wins, and it's synergy of all these languages, and they're still evolving. Everything is evolving. I love the passion of David Heinemeier Hansson, like creator of Ruby on Rails. He is like creating a blog almost like each and every day. He is posting some really great ideas, and we can see how in Ruby on Rails, like the injection of the JavaScript really evolved. And previously there was like Webpack for like React.js and Vue.js, right? Then there was like Webpacker, and right now then it was like removed with other tools. And the recent and Ruby on Rails has this import maps feature, which integrates the React even in better approach. Like it's even smoothly. I can like introduce from CDN any like library, even like React, and just use import maps, and it just works out of the box. No need to have like a Webpack or a Packer. So
Hmm.
right now, it's never been so great time as right now to start Ruby. Just try it out. It's really great. Yeah, like experience.
Awesome.
Believe me, experience will be really
Yeah.
great.
Bright future, bright future. And
Exactly.
I liked your reference about how many people like always saying that, oh, this is the last year of Ruby, and the next year is the same, and a couple of years later they're telling the same. This is the last year of Ruby. I've heard the same for Java. Way they were, like for the last 20 years, I hear that every year something is coming out and say,
Java
oh,
is dying, right? But
Java is dying. Yeah, like learn something new, go outside and just forget about it. And this is the extinct technology and would be there anymore soon.
and just to emphasize that it's not dying, it's just another circle of evolution, let's say.
Right,
Because if we
right.
can take a look at the how many companies were actually like starting with Ruby on Rails, of course later then move to some other technologies, but as I said, starting with Ruby on Rails is really great. You can bring your ideas to the prototype, to the working solution really fast. And for example, SlideShare, Airbnb, Crunchbase, like Dribble, Instacart, Shopify, GitHub, GitLab, Twitter was initially written on Ruby on Rails. Then it switched to Java because it has like some scaling problems, etc. But again, it was easier to start with Ruby on Rails and continue, and your experience growing, your company
Mm.
or your product is growing, and Ruby on Rails on each and every stage of the product still can offer something, and you will like it. And the biggest thing that I love about like Ruby and Ruby on Rails is that I'm never tired of Ruby on Rails. I never think that okay, there is like I'm done with that. I would like to see something else. I always can learn something new, and even though after this past experience, like many years of me like doing with Ruby on Rails, I still find something I can learn, experiment, and I can like see something bright in Ruby on Rails, and it's more greater things yet to come.
Well, that's great. And as we are moving closer to the end of our today's discussion, and I have another question for you, probably the last one.
Okay.
What advice would you give to a developer who is considering learning Ruby as their first language?
Great question, and I believe that the main advice for the newcomers like to Ruby, just don't overthink about it. Just try it out. Just give it a try. Try it, and again, you will like it. Believe me, the experience will be really great.
Okay. Yeah, great advice. I like it. And especially how you described all the advantages of Ruby and all of the benefits that it has. Just worth giving it a try for
Yep.
sure. Okay, thank you, Sergey, for today's fruitful and interesting conversation. And uh, have a good day. Bye.
Yeah. Thank you, Dmitro. It was pleasure to talk to you, and hope for more such podcasts. Thank
Thanks.
you.
Bye.